others to log on, like Steve and Max. Do you want to give a portfolio?
Yeah, so we are back to making money, which is always good. We have most of our money still in Suzel, the ETF, but we have upwards of like 70% of our capital deployed, which is good. We are up, by the end of last week, we were up 2.4% or 2.5%, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's better than losing money. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. We've made back all the losses that we had at the beginning. So big wins, good things, everything's looking great. So hopefully we'll be able to deploy more capital into a couple different stocks before summer begins, and then just keep tracking all of those.
I was gonna just show them the dashboard, but I don't know if I can share my screen. But you guys are gonna get a portfolio update from Steve this week, so you will be able to see all of our holdings, all of our positions, and just like a holistic view of our portfolio value as it is right now. So last week we had EW in MCore, Edward Life Sciences, and MCore pitch. And we decided to invest in Edward Life Sciences. Voting was still a little bit down, but the price, we're going to wait an extra week to actually invest in them because the price was a little high given our price target. So that's why we're going to wait another week. But yeah, it's a healthcare sector, Zach. And we think that was a great pitch, and we're going to invest in
it. Gang. Woo.
And I'll be sending out, and once you guys get the portfolio updates and everything, I can show you, or like write out a template on how you guys can put that on your resume, because you guys can say like the dollar value and the shares and everything. So that'll be exciting too, because pretty sure we got one from every sector so far. Yeah. Okay, so looks like we have Steve here now. So let's get started. This week we're gonna have the tech sector pitch. Financials and real estate is gonna take an extra week because they wanna do a different company. They switch companies. So we'll just have one today, so it's gonna be a quick meeting. But yeah, with that, you guys can take it away.
Okay, so I'm Nathan.
I'm Mosin.
And we're going to be pitching SKWS Solutions for the IT sector today. So we're going to go over the investment thesis, some industry overview, some company analysis, and then ESG and how that factors into our evaluation. So overall, when considering the semiconductor industry, and mainly the impending rollout of 5G, we feel like right now is a good opportunity to get in on one of these companies, considering prices are pretty low. So we're gonna propose a buy for SKWS Solution at $90. I think it's trading at around 94 right now. So this was a couple days ago. And SKWS Solutions is an industry leader and stays on the bleeding edge with technology and an ever improving catalog of products. And also contributing to our decision was a pretty good MSCI rating compared to its peers, as well as the company clearly places a large premium on the pillars of ESG. So we thought that they were a good fit for our portfolio. So taking a look at the industry, some of the trends for the industry is obviously technological innovation, and that really pushes demand for new devices. So right now, there's going to be a rollout of 5G capable devices as well as 5G infrastructure. And also, a lot of devices are connected to the internet and collect data, which is the Internet of Things. So these two are like big essentially moving demand forward in the industry. And one negative we saw in the industry was that in 2019 there was like a reverse of growth. However, our company is not affected by that, and it's in fact in a different sector within the industry that they don't deal in, so we don't see them affected by that. Also, another thing we were considering was trade tensions before coronavirus, as well as coronavirus itself and that effect, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Some of these material factors from SASB map, obviously energy management and water and waste management for these companies as they're producing the chips, and regarding social and governance, employee health and safety, as well as diversity and inclusion within the company and the board. So looking at the industry outlook a little bit, as I said before, growth in the industry reversed in 2019. However, this was due to abnormal fluctuations within the memory market. Not to get too in depth with it, it was kind of a natural swing that happens in the market that was made a little bit worse by the trade tensions as well as the coronavirus. And so SKWS makes logic-based chips, so it's a completely different part of the semiconductor industry. So these two charts here show that the revenue for the industry was way down in 2019, the first one. But if you look at it based off the three different, if they split up the products within the semiconductor industry, you can see the blue bar is the logic-based products, and they have had steady growth through 2019 with projections still going up. The green is the memory, which fluctuates a little bit more. So we feel like SKWS is a little bit protected from that 2019 blip. With strong projections moving forward, they're going to hit the $500 billion milestone in 2021. And a large portion of this growth in the industry is dependent on 5G. And that's something that SKWS is working with. So we see that as a big plus. And some people are skeptical of 5G actually making a sizable rollout in the near future. However, we saw that TSMC, which is one of the largest semiconductor foundry plants in the world, it's in Asia, they are making a $2 billion capex investment in 5G production in 2020, or in either 2020 or 2021. So clearly there is some real actual movement happening for that, and that kind of bolstered our decision to invest now, because some people were skeptical about 5G, and that's going to be really important. Additionally, one of the biggest revenue streams for SKWS is smartphones, and so especially 5G smartphones in the near future. And the percentage of the semiconductor industry revenue will be for smartphones will be 27% by 2021. So we see that as a plus. It's going to making a big jump. Also, 5G smartphone, the number of smartphones in the world in general, or 5G smartphones by 2020 actually got revised by Gartner Group. Their projection was 180 billion. It got bumped up to 220 billion. That also looks good for us. Yeah, so these are all factors that kind of made us feel good about the semiconductor industry in general. But to take a look at the company more specifically, SKWS Solutions was formed after a merger between Alpha Industries and Contextant in 2002. They're the 7th largest semiconductor supplier by market cap in the US. And they have a widespread product line that spans mobile devices, which is their biggest line, IoT devices, infrastructure, automobiles, aerospace, and defense are two new product lines they recently added, as well as healthcare. Their CEO is Liam K. Griffin, who is has a science and business background. And some of the little overview of ESG for the firm. The company has an extensive CRS or CSR philosophy, that really covers every aspect of ESG. We read through it a little bit, and we're very impressed with how in depth it was. They have a program called Green Products where they like rate and report how their products are made and if they follow regulations, which we thought was pretty unique within the industry. And they do a report on each of their products, and you can go on their website and look up a product to see how it fares. They're a member of the Responsible Business Alliance, and they have pretty stringent sustainability policies that they not only audit themselves for, but they also look all the way up and down their supply chain. So major risks for Skyworks. The recent deterioration in global demand for semiconductors was kind of the main thing we saw when looking at the industry, as well as the effect of trade tensions and COVID-19. And we also saw a big issue for these companies is maybe nefarious actors within their supply chains. So making sure that they get their they get suppliers that are not like doing malpractice and stuff like that. So when we looked at Skyworks and how they mitigate these issues, we saw that despite the industry slowdown, Skyworks continued to perform well financially and outperform a lot of their peers, especially those that work in memory. Skyworks obviously in logic, so they were protected from the industry slowdown. They're definitely on the cutting edge of a lot of technologies. They're rolling out 5G plans. They have a lot of deals for devices and infrastructure within 5G. They're on the cutting edge with IoT as well. We also saw, not to get too technical, but Wi-Fi 6E, which is like the next iteration of Wi-Fi, I guess. They have a lot of devices coming out that are Wi-Fi 6E enabled. So when that rolls out in the near future, they'll be ready for that. We saw that they secured new contracts in the future. So military contracts, aerospace and automobile contracts, as well as some contracts within consumer electronics. So that kind of solidifies future performance for them. As far as ESG goes, we talked about it. They constantly audit themselves and their supply chains to OECD and RMAP guidelines, which are both international regulatory bodies. Skyworks also requires itself and its members of its supply chain to follow the Responsible Business Alliance Code of Conduct. Furthermore, they audit their supply chain to prevent the slavery or child labor at any point, which sounds a little bit rough, but apparently that is an issue within this industry and some of the suppliers and foundries. But we thought that was definitely a plus too.
Okay, so ESG integration now, basically when we looked at the SASB map, the material things were really waste management, how they source their materials, energy, and then employee health and safety. And for the Bloomberg disclosure score, unfortunately, we weren't able to get that since we don't have access to Bloomberg. They do have an AMSCI rating. They're in the top 20 percentile, top 20% for the semiconductor industry. They have strong environment and social grades. There is room for improvement in governance, specifically looking at what they do. They do audit their suppliers, for raw materials. So how do the miners source all these minerals that they use to produce the chips? There are concerns with child labor, and not just child labor, but waste management, the amount of emissions or pollution that these miners emit. And when looking how they relate to the Sustainable Development Goals, firstly, clean water and sanitation, industry innovation infrastructure. 5G is literally the new 4G, and they've spent millions, if not billions, in R&D just to develop 5G. And responsible consumption and production. They are responsible with how they produce their chips. They do have better initiatives than their competitors, and trying to maintain the environment impact and pollution. And yeah, they could work on governance. So there have been in the past, a couple of concerns from investors with their expense recognition, but they have been improving, and so it isn't really a concern. And it's what's, they could be a double A company, but governance was what scored them down.
They mention anything about what they're doing to improve governance? Have they released any like press releases or make any actionable steps?
I couldn't find anything, honestly.
Okay, just curious to see if they've like noted anything themselves.
Yeah. I couldn't pull anything. It was just what I got from the MSCI ESG report. Next slide, Nate, please. So they are a member of the Responsible Business Alliance. Basically, it's a organization of companies. Like, it's kind of like a pledge that companies sign, and then when they sign that pledge, they they promise to implement internal controls to monitor labor practices, health and safety, business ethics, and the environment. And because they're a signatory to the RBA and a member of that alliance, they do implement. They do expect their suppliers to also implement the RBA, even though they aren't signatories. So when they do source a lot of their materials from frontier markets, whether it's Congo or other places in Africa, they do have strict policies on not using child labor, not polluting water systems and whatnot. They are an American company, but the majority of their revenue is from the US. A large portion is from Asia. Only 8% of their revenue is from Europe, but all of their products follow strict regulatory compliance with the EU. This is because the EU have a much more higher standard for regulatory standards than the US and Asia, and so they do decide to comply with them. Specifically, it's with the PB and plastic, what type of plastic they use, and then how safe their products are. And they do, as I said, they emphasize proper and ethical sourcing. Next slide.
Mohsen, can you talk about the green products a little bit more?
The green products, basically, it's just it's the PB. So all their products are green friendly and PBA free. They don't harm the environment in any way. And yeah. Okay. So for the valuation, one big important thing is their exposure to the FANG companies. About 60% of their revenue is from Google and Apple. They do have a strong correlation with them. It's 0.96. So you see the blue line is Skyworks and the green one is FANG. So year to date, FANG is actually positive, and as you can see, the two lines they move together. It's just Skyworks are still down for the year just because name recognition. I believe investors have more faith in the FANG companies than the smaller tech companies, and so really if we want exposure to the FANG in our portfolio, from a financial perspective, Google and Apple are strong. Fundamentally, they're good financials, but Apple not the best ESG ratings. Google high valuation. Skyworks. Next slide, Nate. Skyworks gets us exposure to Google and Alphabet at a much lower valuation. Yeah, so as we see here, if you look at the EV over EBITDA and EV over EBIT, a much lower valuation than their competitors and much lower than Apple and Alphabet. Next slide. And just one more thing to mention about Apple. Apple is their largest customer for chips, and their competitors also supply Apple with chips, but Broadcom and Qorvo, but neither Skyworks nor Broadcom nor Qorvo are big enough to supply Apple's demand, and so that kind of guarantees that all of them, Apple keeps buying from all of them. So they're not necessarily always fighting for the same contract, and they do. All of the competitors get exposure to Apple, but Skyworks we think is better than their competitors because it's a lower valuation, and they have more advanced R&D in 5G. And for the DCF, obviously, with COVID-19, we do expect a decrease in revenue for 2020. The company adjusted its guidance just, I think it was like a 10 or 15% decrease in revenues. I thought that was, fairly generous. We went more conservative, 30% decrease for 2020. What was interesting is they had zero debt, short-term and long-term, absolutely none. And so, we said they could, make use of a almost zero interest rate environment and then issue some debt, to help them. They will need the cash because of COVID-19. And we came to a valuation of $125 per share. It's not 40% because right now it's trading at $94, $95. It's up more than 4% for today. And it looks like a strong buy financially. Next slide. Yeah, so the base case is $125, and that's based on a weak 2020 and a strong rebound in 2021. Bull case is Apple. Rumors are that Apple will have 4 new iPhones in the fall. So if that is the case, they're going to have a very strong Q4, and if the economy recovers quickly in 2021, in late 2020, early 2021 from the COVID crisis, we predict a bull case of 144, and a bear case, depending on how long the COVID recession and crisis is. If it's worse than expected, there's a slow recovery into 2021. It could go down to $60 or $70. And so, all 3 cases are based on COVID, and specifically the bull is based on how well Apple do in the near future. And yeah, I think that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
It seems like they've done very well against their comps because they make logic chips and the comps do not. Do you have any comps that are also producers of logic chips?
I think currently what we're looking for in the future is 5G as their industry. Currently, no one is in 5G except for them and Qorvo and Broadcom, and all 3 companies are spearheading the 5G campaign. But we think from a comparative perspective, I think both Qorvo and Broadcom were there, and they do have a better valuation than Qorvo and Qualcomm.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were looking at Qualcomm when we were at school, and they also have a much weaker ESG MSCI rating, so that's why we got turned off from them. But yeah.
I got a question too. Could you just help me explain the COVID impact a little bit better? So it's basically the loss of iPhone and other Google technology products that'll be the primary impact?
No, it's also production. So they are a company based out of Massachusetts. So they're obviously their factories are shut down right now, but they also have factories in Taiwan, I believe, and Japan. And so I think, when, COVID was a problem in Asia, they had to shut down their factories there, and they were just operating in the US. But I think right now, their production is halted for both, US and Asia. But it's not an issue because, all of their customers are also halted production. So just depends on how, how soon the U.S. economy opens up, how soon Japan and Taiwan open up, so they could go back to production.
Right. Right. Thank you. Also, how big is this company compared to like those main competitors that you just mentioned? Sorry, I didn't catch the market cap.
Yeah, they have a $15 billion market cap. Relatively small for chip manufacturers. They're seventh by market cap. And yeah, the Corvo
Well, yeah,
is
you
a
said
bit smaller.
seventh by market share, right?
What? A market
Do
share?
you
I'm
happen to
not
know like the trend on their market share?
I do not. Maybe
Sorry.
Nate.
We could get
I'll
back
let
to
you know.
we could find that.
Right, because it looks like, I mean, seventh isn't even like that big of a player. Like really, like you're looking for like top 4 to be like an industry leader. But I mean, if they're a relatively young company with new technology, I can certainly see their like market share on the rise right now. So that wouldn't really concern me.
Yeah, but it's important to know that they're seventh for like the entire semiconductor industry, but they are in a much more smaller subsector. So we're comparing them to NVIDIA and then Intel, but they aren't really competing with NVIDIA and Intel, which are, I believe, our top 2 semiconductor suppliers. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys.
And then you mentioned, so aside from 5G, you're talking about their product line spanning. Is there a specific focus other than 5G that they're looking to get into?
I think it's IoT, Internet of Things. So they're focusing a lot on that as well. So integrating home appliances, automobile, all of that stuff. Currently, it's RFID chips that they produce the most, but there is a lot to look at in the future with 5G and Internet of Things, their applications.
But also, like Motion was saying, Apple is their major customer by far. So if they announce a 5G phone, we think that will be really, really good for them. So
with Apple, and I know Huawei is also a customer of them, how is that something that they're gonna be still a customer in the future? Like, is there any security around that? Is it like contractual?
Yeah, I don't know if, did you say Huawei was their customer? I think there was definitely tensions there.
Yeah, I think Huawei has is not as big of a player as their customer as Apple is, but I'm just kind of curious since Apple does drive their price, is there any security around like the future of Apple still being a customer? I don't know what that kind of looks like in terms of like contract.
Well, one thing is that I think, like, I don't know if this is still in place, but I think either Trump or like someone banned that, like, we weren't US-based semiconductors weren't allowed to sell to Huawei. Is that?
Oh, maybe it isn't anymore.
They cut them out, so I think that might affect them. But still, Apple's their biggest customer, and like Motion was saying, Apple's demand is bigger for any of these
products, yeah.
producers to supply. So.
Okay. Any other questions from the other analysts or Steve, Ariel?
Good on my end.
Okay. So, okay, it's just gonna be one pitch. Thank you, Mohsen and Nathan, for that. Really good job. I want to look more into the company and everything. So, Sasha will be sending out the deck, and like I said, for those who jumped on late, Steve's going to be producing our one pager, which will go over our portfolio in depth, and so you guys can start to get a better understanding of what it looks like right now, all of our holdings, and then you guys can even put that on your resume and that will be shared with the whole BSIG team. But thought you guys would be especially interested in seeing that. So that should be coming this week. And we didn't put in any trade requests again for this week. So, but we'll update you guys next week on that. Some other things is, Haley, actually, do you want to mention reaching out to Megan?
Sure. Okay. So, I sort of made a friend at Loomis Sales last semester, and she actually moved and is now working at MSCI. And we've been connecting with her about speaking to us, kind of doing fireside chat type-esque thing, and kind of just having her talk. We've kind of narrowed it down because we decided a whole MSCI breakdown would be a little bit hard. And so I think she's going to talk about climate change and kind of a little bit of the misconceptions with it and go into a little bit more detail on like its effect on things and like the actual importance of it and stuff like that as it relates to like reporting MSCI stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that will be good. We haven't decided an exact date yet, so I'm going to connect with the e-board and you guys can chime in on like in the group chat on like what days you guys think would be best. But we're looking for probably a day next week, probably just an hour-long conversation. And like Haley mentioned, it's going to be on climate solutions, which is hopefully going to be really interesting as climate is a big part of our ESG profile and the environmental pillar. So that will give you guys more context and background on her experience with MSCI, and then hopefully just more information on the ESG components and how that can be related to your future stock pitches and our portfolio as a whole. So yeah, so I'll keep you guys updated on times for that. But thank you, Haley, for reaching out and making this connection. And I think that she'll actually provide like such a great perspective to our group.
Yeah, absolutely. She's also super friendly and nice. So hopefully that she's kept connection with us because I think she'll be super helpful and with MSCI stuff as we go forward.
Definitely. So that's it for today. Anybody have any final thoughts, things that they want to talk about? Hope everyone's doing well home. But that's it for today. But eBoard, can you guys stay on for a quick sec?
Yep.
But that's